Ken Shepard. Scott Likens. Brad Portillo. Absent. Abil Maloney. Bill Pinn. Dave Oxley. And Jim Bellata. Quorum is present.
Attorney Williams, will we be swearing people in this evening?
We're going to discuss that later on, and we'll look at it for the next meeting.
Good evening, Chairman Oxley and members of the Commission. Before you this evening, case number 2017-006, applicant John Antonitis on behalf of the Lupine Montessori School is seeking a special use permit for the purpose of establishing a private school to be located at 936 North State Street in the existing North State Street Center. The applicant intends to lease a 2,500 square foot tenant space positioned on the north end of the building. The tenant spaces on either side are currently vacant. The applicant is seeking approval of special use for a not-for-profit private Montessori school for children ages 3 to 6. The subject property is Zone C2. A private school is classified as a special use within the C2 zoning district. If approved, the applicant would begin providing educational services to families starting in September. Anticipated enrollment would be approximately 15 to 20 children. Per the applicant, there will be 2 employees. Hours and days of operation would be Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. The applicant may offer after-school care, which would extend the hours of operation to 6 p.m. A special use permit shall be granted only if evidence is presented to establish the following. The proposed use at the particular location requested is necessary or desirable to provide a service or facility which is in the interest of the public and will contribute to the general welfare of the neighborhood or community. Staff finds the proposed private Montessori school will provide a desirable service that will contribute to the general welfare by providing primary education to children at the preschool and kindergarten level. The proposed use will not have a substantial adverse effect upon the traffic conditions, utility facilities, and other matters affecting safety and general welfare. Staff finds private schools should not have any adverse effect upon the adjacent property, traffic conditions, or character of the neighborhood, as it would be located within an existing commercial center. And third, the proposed use will be designed, arranged, and operated so as to permit the development and use of the neighboring property in accordance with the applicable district regulations. Staff finds the proposed private school would be located within an existing commercial center and should have no impact on future use of neighboring properties. Should the Plan and Zoning Commission find the special use permit for a private school acceptable, the following motion is recommended. A motion to approve a special use permit for a private school to be located at 936 North State Street, subject to the following condition. Because the drive aisle in front of the building is designated a fire lane by the respective fire district, drop-off pickup of students in front of the building is not allowed. This concludes staff analysis. The applicant is present this evening to answer your questions.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Jason Antonitis. I am the board chair. Excuse me. 14250 Hillcrest Road, Lamont, 60439. So my name is Jason Antonitis. I'm the board chair of Blue Pine Montessori School. We're an Illinois not-for-profit organization. And as Kimberly had said, we are seeking a special use permit for 936 North State Street to establish a private school. I'd like to introduce Tina Davidson, our head of school.
Hello, my name is Tina Davidson. I reside in Lockport. My husband and I have been here for 20 years. I've been with Montessori for 15 years, and so we thought this would be a perfect community to start the school.
Do you have any questions for us? Yes, originally we had planned to have cars pull up into right in front of the unit and drop children off with the recommendation of Dave Bricker. Parents will park their cars in the parking lot and either bring their children to the unit or teachers will come out to the car to retrieve the children.
Have something in place where the kids won't be by themselves walking across.
Correct. No children will ever be walking alone. They'll either be chaperoned by a parent or a teacher.
Thank you. Is there much that has to be done inside the building before you guys would occupy it?
No, in year one, we don't plan to do any improvements. That's why this space was desirable for us, in that it is basically a vanilla box, open space, that's exactly what we're seeking, is just an open footprint. So no improvements will be done in year one.
Okay, what's your pleasure? I move that we approve the staff's recommendation, motion, approve.
Second? Second. Roll call vote, please.
Ken Shepard,
Yes.
Scott Lickens,
Yes.
Fred Portillo, Bill Maloney,
Yes.
Bill Pinn,
Yes.
Dave Oxley,
Yes.
and Jim Devoto.
Yes. Thank you very much. This will go to city council.
It will be going on July 19th, next week.
This will go to city council July 19th. You'll confer with staff.
Thank you.
Thank you much. Yeah. Next, we have the final development plan for the mini mart at 1626 South State Street.
Thank you. Case number 2016-005 takes place at 1626 South State Street. The applicant, William Moorman of WW Architects and Consultant LLC, on behalf of Ahmed Zadan, has submitted final development plans for a 1,740 square foot mini mart gas station service building. The applicant proposes to demolish the existing approximate 400 square foot building and reconstruct a new 1,740 square foot building. The purpose of the intended expansion is to increase sales floor area to add new products to the store. The property is zoned C2, community commercial. A gas station, limited service, also referred to as automobile mini market or automobile mini mart, is a permitted use within the C2 zoning district. The existing Marathon gas station was originally developed on 2 non-conforming lots. The lots were consolidated into a single property for this request, which resulted in a property that was brought closer into conformance with the zoning ordinance, however still deemed non-conforming. The rear portion of the yard consists of an existing slope with a retaining wall. The retaining wall will be reconstructed to allow the proposed building. The existing parking lot, gas pumps, shed, and gas pump canopy will remain intact on the property. Due to the configuration of these structures and the existing driveways, non-conforming conditions such as a 20 to 22-foot width drive aisle and a 1-foot parking setback currently exist on the property. Should the commission determine that the property should be brought into compliance holistically, this can be addressed through administrative variance. During the construction period, the applicant has expressed that he will be making improvements to the overall condition of the property with general repairs and maintenance. Some of these improvements include repair of the gas pump canopy, the existing chain link fence, resurfacing and restriping of the existing parking lot, removal of yellow bollards that no longer serve to protect old tanks, and removal of broken concrete curbs. These repairs and replacements will be a condition of approval. The final site plan. The site plan illustrates that the approximate 400 square foot building will be demolished and replaced with a 1,740 square foot building. The expansion will require the removal of an existing retaining wall with additional cut into an additional slope located on the east side of the property. The proposed development is in compliance with both requirements of the ordinance, such as setbacks, lot coverage, and building height. The provided parking exceeds required parking spaces. For the staff report, the dimensions of the spaces were 8 foot by 18 feet. The applicant has agreed to modify the dimensions to be 9 feet by 18 feet in accordance with the ordinance. No new access is proposed. Currently, the dumpster is not within an enclosure. A new dumpster enclosure will be constructed using a wood fence. The elevation plan calls for a mixture of materials to include glass, aluminum, cast stone, and cement fiber panels for the proposed building. A gutter with a downspout located out of view of the public at the rear of the building is shown on the east elevation. The elevation plan indicates that rooftop mechanical equipment will be screened as required. The applicant will be removing overgrown frontage landscaping along State Street and replacing with 14 new compact viburnum. Signage is not proposed at this time. A separate sign permit will need to be submitted for review and approval. Should the commission find the final development plans acceptable, the following motion is recommended. A motion to approve final development plans for a new 1,740 square foot gas station mini mart building, subject to the following conditions. The existing parking lot shall be resurfaced, seal-coated, and striped, and maintained in accordance with city code. The parking spaces located on the north side of the property shall have permanently affixed curb stops. The overall condition of the property shall be in good condition and shall be improved with the following maintenance. The existing gas pump canopy shall have the rust removed, be repaired, and overall structure shall be repainted. The old concrete remains in blocks along the perimeter of the parking lot shall be removed. The chain link fence that is damaged shall be repaired or replaced. If replaced, a building permit must be obtained prior to installation. Prior to construction, required engineering review and inspection fees need to be submitted. A building permit for the existing shed shall be obtained to establish a record of accessory building. And six, a demolition permit shall be obtained from the building department prior to demolition of the existing service building. This concludes staff analysis. The applicant is present this evening to answer.
Chair, if I may, before the applicant comes up, if I could just correct the record that this is the case number 2017-005, not 006.
Would the applicant like to come forward? State your name and address for record, please, sir.
My name is William Warman, 9853 Tamiami Trail North, Naples, Florida.
My name is Ahmed Salih, and I live at 718 Michigan Street in Elmhurst.
Ahmed Mukhtar, 31 Sorrento Drive, Palace Heights.
Do we have any questions for the applicant, or would you like?
Just our intent is to clean up the site, make it more customer friendly, make it more compatible with other competition. Right now, it's a very difficult store for people to even come in and out of, and the goal is make it cleaner, brighter, more accessible, clean up the site, clean up the landscaping, fix the fences. I mean, it's been overgrown. So that the intent is to get it cleaned up so it's more presentable to the village and to the customers who use the facility.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments? Go ahead.
Okay, I got a few parking stalls. You mentioned that the width should be 9 feet, but more so than that, on the south side of the site, parallel parking, you need 22 feet. 18 is not enough. So hopefully you can lengthen stalls 1, 2, and 3 at the south end of the site. Looks like you've got a little bit of room.
Yes. We can.
Okay. For the handicap stall, there's a, I don't know if that's a pump or what it is, the longer rectangle. It's at the east end of the canopy. You don't have enough backup room, they're going to hit it. We need 24 feet to jockey out of there, and I think there's only like 20 feet available. I think the minimum stall width is 24 feet. To me, we can relax that that requirement except for when there's a structure in the way. So if that's a pump or something.
Oh, no, that rectangle's a car.
Oh, it's a car?
Yeah.
I don't know, nothing's labeled.
Yeah, so,
Okay, well then, looks like you have enough room to the pump then.
yes.
And the setback for the wheel blocks, they got to be 3 feet from the fence.
Okay.
1 foot's not enough. They're going to run right into the fence. It's like it's not even there.
I think my dimension was the parking spot is 1 foot off because the wheels overhang. So the stop would be 3 foot off the property line.
Okay.
That's,
Okay.
I just measured I dimensioned the parking spot itself because the car overhangs 2 feet.
You're going to change those to 20-foot spaces also?
The 9 foot wide spaces. Yes.
On the elevation plan in A3, there's no colors or anything. Usually we require color renderings for the elevation.
I had presented in my package color rendering of the facade. It'd basically be
I don't see that sheet.
It wasn't included in the packet because the elevation was revised
Rise to what?
to the black and white version that you have in your packet that has the labels with the materials to include the packet with the materials to be used.
Because you have written in the legend for items 5 and 6, which are the predominant panels, color A and color B, and I don't know what color A and color B are.
Basically, it's like a cut stone tan.
I looked in here.
Right.
There's colors point out in here, but it doesn't say color A and color B. It's just got, I don't,
The bottom would be a stone color, cream color stone with a brownish brick and then a cream colored cornice.
Bottom, how tall?
I believe was
10 feet.
18 inches.
Was there a review by staff of the elevations for conformance with our code?
Yes,
Okay, and it was okay?
yes, it met the percentage and the number of materials to be used.
Okay.
What was revised on this drawing is what I want to know.
The main problem was that the materials were not called out. So there's numbers that are identified on the elevation, but it's unknown what those items were. So when asked for revisions, the copy that was submitted had very similar, but also called out the actual, had a legend added or a key added. And the packet that you have with the materials, I believe those are numbered to match that key.
So we're supposed to connect the dot?
Well, they're not numbered. You got number 7 and number 24, and there's not any numbers like that in the elevation.
On sheet A3 on the right-hand side, there's a legend with numbers, 1 through 11, and those numbers match on that sample piece that you have there. I have labeled 4 and 5 and 7 and 8.
Is that a 24 or 2? Number 2. It was kind of confusing to me.
Number 7 on page 5.
Those met the requirements. And then the other thing was the lighting. In the staff report, it said, no new outdoor lighting is proposed. The new building will not have lighting fixtures. Existing lighting is built in a gas pump canopy. The fixtures are downward lit. Was there a photometric plan that they have to submit for lighting for safety to make sure the existing lights are adequate for the new site? Is it being expanded?
A photometric plan was not required because no new lighting is proposed.
But for safety, there's going to be dark spots now because you're expanding the lot, and that's not safe for customers at night.
We're not expanding a lot. The building's moving backward into the hill. So the front of the building will stay exactly where it is now. It goes back into the hill. So the exact parking lot and everything is exactly how it is today.
How is the building going to be lit? There's
It's
no
from the lights
exterior
inside the store with the glass that's along the front, and the canopy's under the canopy, and there's whatever. We were not proposing any new outdoor lighting, not to create any extra lighting.
So the current lighting plan meets code when they originally applied for the permit for the structure is what I'm getting at. So the new lighting ordinance, is it better than when it was when they first built it to make sure it's just up to code? That's all I'm asking. You know what I'm saying?
Can add a condition to request a photometric plan be submitted.
We're happy to do that. We didn't do it because we weren't adding lighting, and that was what I was.
Safety. We're all about safety. That's all I had. Thank you.
Could I see that plan again? I feel we're at a disadvantage not having a copy of that. Any other questions, comments? Scott?
Are these the drawings that will be submitted for a building permit?
No, they will have to submit detailed drawings.
Yes.
Okay, there'll be structural foundation
Oh, yes,
drawings?
correct, yes.
Such?
We've included the structural drawings for the retaining wall in our package. The building drawings will be a complete set of mechanical, electric, plumbing, structural, architectural drawings.
Mr. Warman, you used to practice in Chicago?
I still do.
Okay.
I'm in Chicago 4 to 5 days a week.
You were part of the WOW first?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
I was with my father.
Once the final plans are put together with the building permit, engineering and the building will do a final review of all this, is that correct?
Well, there really was no, the engineering was reviewed by Steve Gidley, our development engineering consultant, and he approved the plans that had been submitted. The building plans, yes, they will be reviewed in detail by our building official when they come through for building permit.
So like some of the concerns that Ophelia brought up, that'll be reviewed at the
Yes.
time. Okay,
Yeah.
correct.
This facility into town near my house, it's around the corner from my house. I welcome to see the improvements over there. I know that was the Clark station way back when, but when Clark was gas and go and everybody else was full service. But I like what I see here. It's going to be an increase in employment opportunities for residents. It's going to take more people to staff it. It's going to be an increase in retail sales tax and an increase in property tax, which is important because that's in the Taft School District, which needs it. So I don't have any problem with it at all. I'll leave the engineering calculations defer to the engineer over there.
Now, one thing that I'm looking at is your distance from the front of your store to your canopy and your gas pump. You put a car out there, how far, what is your distance from that?
The same as it is today. We're not moving, we're using that same front line of the building there. And the canopy's up much taller, so car goes underneath it, yeah.
But we have a couple gas stations in town that are very tight fits, and that's why our concern was here. We have the chance to change this, and we may seek that opportunity.
Between the... Approximately 15 to 16 feet at that corner to the front.
And, you know, with your parking stalls from on the east backing up, with a car that, you know, in the box here that's not labeled, it's a car, you're going to have some accidents there.
We can make those angle parking spots instead of 90 degree, which will make it more easy to back out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would help out immensely, yeah. Now, one other concern is that the building having the rooftop access from the back of the property, are you going to address that somehow with a safety fence or something of that nature? And the retaining wall? Because we've got, what, a 7-foot drop on the retaining wall to the ground?
We're putting a new retaining wall in the back there.
Are you going to address the top of that so there's a fence so
It can fall off.
don't jump over it and get hurt, something of that nature?
Yeah, we can, as we have on the two sides of the property, we'll add a fence on around the perimeter of the retaining wall.
In the building as well? There's actually, I mean,
There's
I'm
parapet on-
envisioning you're pretty close to the ground elevation at the top of the building in the back.
I'll look into, I don't think we are, but I will look into that. I'll do a section through to see the height differential. The only people who go up to the building will be a roof hatch inside the store for maintenance people to get onto the roof.
Right, but someone from the could walk up from the east side of the property and walk onto that roof or jump onto that roof. That's our concern is, are you going to put a safety fence there to stop them from doing that?
It's 10 foot higher than the wall to get up to the roof. So they can't just jump up onto that roof. And there's a 5 foot space between the building and the wall, sort of like a moat around the building. So I don't think and if we put a fence on the retaining wall, there's no way then to jump up onto the roof.
Okay, as long as you're going to put the fence on there.
Yeah. We can make that a
We didn't see
condition.
this drawing till just now, and I was trying to figure out what this was.
It was just the material samples of,
It didn't fit anywhere in your packet, and it's like, where's this going? That's what's created some confusion here.
sorry about that.
If I may, perhaps what we can do is put a condition in the approvals that stipulates that once the building is constructed, that the applicant would agree, if necessary, some sort of barrier or protective measure would be installed if it was so deemed necessary.
Any other questions, comments?
Is there a minimal amount of masonry face brick that you have to have on the building since there's a lot of windows? It doesn't look like there's very much of it. There's only, I think, 12 inches of it. It's just like a little bit.
Could you increase the stone up to the bottom of these window heights?
Isn't the red
Red
brick?
As red as brick look material.
Faux brick.
Yeah.
That's the faux brick by Nietzsche.
Correct.
Well, the yellow, that red.
Yellow is only 16 inches at the bottom, correct?
Right, and that's
That yellow is
the stone.
stone, and the red is a faux brick by Nietzsche, cementitious fiber. So it'll look like brick all the way up to the top of that window.
My question, do we want it to look like stone or brick?
I don't think it matters.
Everybody's happy with it, let's go.
But the minimums are met, right?
Names are met.
And it'd just be brown anodized window frames, keeping in the color scheme of.
It's your pleasure.
Motion to approve as per staff comments.
Second. Motion by Perfino, second by Maloney. Roll call vote.
Ken Shepherd,
Yes.
Scott Lickens,
Yes.
Joe Perfilio.
Yes.
Bill Maloney,
Yes.
Bill Penn,
Yes.
Dave Oxley,
Yes.
and Jim Malata.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We're doing with those anyhow. Yeah, okay. Okay, our next case is the final development plan for religious house of worship at 16059 and 16105 West 151st Street.
Yes, thank you.
We need a motion to take this off the table. It's been tabled 27 times.
Sonny, do we need to untable this or no? Just by
It's
talking
been
about
tabled
it?
several times.
Yeah, we're okay. We don't have to untable it. As the commission may recall, several of the items related to these requested actions, such as the annexation, the rezoning, and amendment to the special use permit requests, were considered by the commission on March 14th. However, with respect to the final development plans, because of some issues and concerns with respect to the location of the building encroaching into the transitional yard, the commission had tabled this item so that the applicant could take a look at relocating that building out of the transitional yard and be more respectful of what was going on the west side of the property. Since that time, the applicant has worked to revise the plans, which are being presented to you this evening. There were some various setbacks for a variety of reasons, but we are here this evening. And included too is a copy of the annexation agreement. For your reference, the commission had asked for that also at the March 14th meeting. And though you don't actually vote on or discuss the annexation agreement, it will provide you information that will help to explain some of the things that have been included in the staff report previously and this evening. Just to summarize, the applicant is looking to build a new temple, which would be a 7,200 square foot building. There would be 3,600 square feet on the main level, which would include the worship area, and 3,600 square feet at the lower level or basement level, which would be the community room and kitchen. A new parking lot is being constructed, and it will consist of 112 total standard parking spaces and 4 accessible. That's a correction I have to make in the report. A proposed detention area and a new septic system. The applicant is looking to construct this project in 3 phases, and each phase has a specific deadline date. It's written here in the staff report what that is, as well as confirmed in the annexation agreement. The plans that are included in your packet are the ones that are updated and listed in the attachment section of the report. The applicant has submitted the amended annexation agreement, and it will be scheduled for a public hearing before the City Council and Committee of the Whole on August 2nd. What I did was, instead of going through this whole report again, I had highlighted and bolded and italicized where some of the changes from the previous report, which is what this was, where the previous report and how the changes had happened. So as I previously mentioned, the building and parking area were encroaching into the transitional yard along the west property line. Because of the discussion, the temple is now set back approximately 60 feet from the west property line and 50 feet from the south property line, and this is calculated by staff. The parking lot is set back 25.3 feet as noted on the final site improvement plan. However, if the commission may recall, back in 2012, a 25-foot setback variance was approved for the parking lot and circulation aisles. So they're not making any changes from what was previously approved in terms of that setback. To summarize phase one, one change that's taking place is that they will need to complete a consolidation plat of the two lots so that future construction will occur on a single lot. In phase two, the number of parking spaces has changed to 28 additional ones will be added. And in phase three, which is where the rest of the project, including the new temple, would be completed, 84 parking spaces are included with that phase for the total of 116, which is 112 standard and 4 accessible. The final landscape plan, it was adjusted to in accordance with the relocation of the building. In addition to that, there was also discussion about a possible public sidewalk along the front of the property. Right now, 151st Street isn't improved, and at some point in the future, we would anticipate that there would be roadway improvements taking place, and part of those roadway improvements may include a public sidewalk. So the applicant has shifted parkway trees 7 feet to accommodate a 7-foot dedication, which is required for a future sidewalk, just so that if they do put the trees earlier than the final phase and a public sidewalk is required, the trees would not have to be moved. In addition, the trash enclosure has been relocated to the east side of the property. It will be part of the phase two parking lot expansion. And then lastly, and most importantly, is that our city's development engineering consultant, Steve Gidley with J.J. Bennis, has reviewed and approved the final site improvement plans, and a letter is included in your packet confirming that. With that being said, if the commission should find the final development plan acceptable, a motion to approve the final development plan for the proposed new temple and ancillary site improvements, subject to several conditions. The first two conditions would need to be addressed prior to the committee of the whole meeting, which will be August 2nd. And that would be, one, a revised plat of annexation, changing the signature blocks from 2016 date to 2017 date, and then the plat of dedication for the additional 7 feet of right-of-way to be submitted for review and approval by the city's development engineering consultant, and then ultimately recorded concurrently with any approved annexation agreement. Also, number two, since the proposed retaining walls are over 3 foot tall, prior to phase three construction, a structural design plan prepared by a structural engineer would be submitted for review and approval by the city. Prior to phase one construction, a plat of easement must be submitted providing for the stormwater management easement and a public utility easement, including the B-box location. A cost estimate for the improvements associated with each phase is required to be provided for review and approval. Based on those appropriate fees, a letter of credit would be established for each respective phase, as well as the appropriate engineering review and/or inspection fees that may not have been paid. Signage is not part of this review process and will require a separate sign permit for all new signs. However, one condition in particular that needs to be noted is that signage is subject to no LED or electronic signs to be constructed on the property until the properties on either side are rezoned to a non-residential use. And at any time, any signage shall be in compliance with the city sign regulations in effect. And lastly, with the submission of a sign permit, a freestanding sign, a landscape plan shall also be provided. That concludes staff's report. I know the applicant and his team are here this evening to provide any additional information and respond to any questions or comments.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments?
Yeah, just overall, I can concur with staff's recommendations to approve here. I realize there's a tremendous amount of work involved here, both on the part of the applicant and the staff. With these construction deadlines. In the event that these construction schedule completion dates are not met, what happens? Does it all sunset, or what does that trigger?
Mr. Davis, by the way, thank you.
Sure. Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, the applicant would come back to the commission and to the city council for an amendment of the agreement to extend the dates, assuming the project's still online. Obviously, we've been doing that. We've been in a process of doing that over the last year or so. So we'd probably go through the same process at that point. There's no provision in the agreement that prohibits the applicant from asking for extensions of the dates, the deadlines. It would be up to the city council for a final decision on whether an extension would be granted.
Thank you.
The 7-foot dedication, I didn't see it on the plans. Is that just going to be put on the plat later?
Yes.
Okay. If the sidewalk goes in along 151st Street, is there going to be some kind of a barrier or fence along the pond because it's 7 feet deep? You don't want somebody wandering into the property and getting hurt. Is that anything that may be? And on the landscape.
Brent, may I ask Brent you to have your speaker much closer, mic closer to you, please? Thank you. We appreciate all of you. I'm hearing impaired, so I just want to make sure that you guys do that. Thank you.
Yeah, Doug, the pond in the front, if they put a walkway along there, there's a 7-foot drop. Is that something for later? Something that would be addressed, something like that?
As of right now, it's not on the plans, but if that's something that needs to be on there, I'm sure that we can have it done.
It'll be something to be engineered at that time.
That could come later. See what happened then when I put it up? Can you hear me now? Yeah. The other thing was the landscape plan. I kind of tried to overlay on the landscape plan where the utilities are at, and a lot of them lined up with the trees. And we make sure that the trees aren't planted by the utilities so you won't have issues in the future. I don't know how big the trees are, but the root systems could bring some havoc with the lines you have in there.
Sure.
That's the only comment I had. I think you guys did a great job picking up all the comments that we had last time. Everything was good. Thanks.
Anybody else? The only comment I have is, I think the timeline's too long. It's been 5 years and nothing's happened except buying the additional property. And 7 years, I think, is too long. But that's just my opinion of it. So, okay, what's your pleasure?
Motion to approve per staff recommendations.
Motion approved. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Second by Will Pinn. Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Shepherd?
Yes.
Scott Likens?
Yes.
Hilliard?
Yes.
Maloney?
Yes.
McKinnon?
Yes.
Lee Moxley?
Yes.
And Willard? Motion passed.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
Next case, the concept plan for an industrial park between 163rd and 167th Street, east of I-355. The applicant, Ridge Development.
Yes. Chairman, before I begin my brief memo, what I would request is I believe that we're having some visual difficulties on these monitors. And so for the benefit of the public, when the PowerPoint presentation is made, if anyone would like to let us borrow their copies and their packets so I can give them out to the public. The applicant will come up and do an actual, but I know it can't be seen.
I got some notes in here.
No.
They're clean. See this? Nice. Something to look at.
Thank you. Okay, so this item was previously presented at the June 13th meeting. Staff had provided an overview of the proposal. The applicant was present to respond to questions and comments. Several residents were in attendance and expressed concerns or asked questions related to site access, truck traffic, road capacity with weight limits, buffering on the north, flooding, impact of the city's new well on existing private wells, lighting, building height, existing retaining wall along the west property line, and the amount of industrial development in the area in general. Staff also referenced the Will County CED plan to address traffic in Will County. Due to these concerns raised by residents, extensive discussion by the commissioners regarding the proposal's conflict with the city's I-355 master corridor plan and the status of the Will County CED freight mobility plan, this item was tabled to this evening so that the applicant can provide supplemental information to support the proposed development. In addition, the commission had requested that our water consultant, Strand Associates, Chris Ulm, is here this evening to also address the impacts of the city's new well on any existing private wells.
Have him come up now and we can have Chris address
Yeah,
it.
do you want Chris to address the issues now, or do you want the applicant to go ahead and do their presentation?
Chris address it, then he can go. There's no
Okay.
point in him sitting there.
Thank you very much. I'm Chris Holmes, Strand Associates. We've been providing consulting engineering services as it relates to the water and sewer system for the city for several years now. And Pam wants me to give the simple answer, is it going to affect the water table, yes or no? And I can't do that. I'm sorry. I'd love to, Pam, but I just got to go back a little bit. The city currently has less water supply capability than it did in the year 2005. They were abandoned since that time due to various reasons, but there's less water now available than there was in 2005. It didn't matter much during the recession, but now that things are growing again, the city needs another well source very badly. There's some environmentally sensitive areas that are tied to the shallow fractured bedrock aquifer that the city uses for all of its supply, and that these homeowners use for their supply in this area. Due to this environmentally sensitive area, the state and federal regulatory agencies have limited the locations that the city can get water from this aquifer to a very small area. This area is basically halfway between 163rd and 167th. Okay? That's the northern boundary. It goes south to about a half mile south of 167th. That's the southern boundary. And it's only east of I-355. So this parcel, there's a parcel to the northeast of this parcel. And then there's a parcel owned by ComEd that have a fracture running through it, a bedrock fracture that is hoped to produce a large amount of water. This is the last areas in the city of Lockport that will be easily, that you can easily get water out of this shallow bedrock. So, that being said, there are 4 properties on 167th Street. There were other residents here last time from 163rd Street. You have municipal wells closer to private wells than this situation would present from the people from 163rd Street, if that makes sense. Those ones on 163rd Street, I don't think will be affected. Other examples in the city would show no effect on those people. The residents, 15504 167th Street is very close to this fractured bedrock line. it may be affected, whether the well goes on this property or it goes on the ComEd piece to the south or the piece to the north. That particular resident may be affected by this. So trying to disassociate the well from this development and say that a well needs to go in this area, it would be in the city's best interest for a well to go in this area. It's a cheaper well. There are very few other options for water quickly right now. We are exploring some of those up on the Prologis piece, but that's the situation there. So typically what would happen is you would try to work with those people that might be affected to connect them to the water system.
Yeah, the one concern that came up was the depth of the residential wells versus the depth of the new one that's being drilled. And obviously, it's going to draw down the water table, and they're not going to have any water. So it would be better to have them serviced off of it if they're in the city limits.
Yeah, no, I don't think that it would draw down the water table and they wouldn't have any water. They may have to lower their pump setting. They may experience less production than they currently receive from their well, so pumps might have to run longer. We're not dewatering the aquifer by any means. My greater concern would actually be during the construction of the well. It might cause some cloudiness in their well. It might cause some cloudiness issues such as that during the construction. During the long-term operation, if we were performing maintenance or something like that on the municipal well, that might cause some cloudiness or some issues with their well. And like I said, their well depths are around 185.
There's a lot of speculation here. So what I'm getting at is, let's say you're wrong. You could be wrong. Engineers are wrong. We're all wrong sometimes. Although we don't like to say that, but sometimes it happens. So is there a way the city can assure the residents that it's not going to be affected to the fact where they're going to be spending more money on electricity for the pumps to run longer and things like that? It's something that's causing the residents additional money. I don't know from the legal standpoint if there's anything we can do to help them out for relief because of this. I don't know.
The biggest question and concern is that you go out there and drill a well and their wells dry up. Now what? Who's going to pay to run a water line to their house, water line down 163rd Street? That expense is the big
People need to
concern.
have some recourse.
I mean, we all know the answer, but
yes, and there is currently a water line down 167th Street, right in front of their house, on the other side of the street.
Pardon me?
The line that comes from well 12 and well 13 does run down 167th Street to the other side of 15.
Runs to the farm and then on the south side of the street, and then it runs north across the street into east.
Correct. So yes.
4 houses or 5 houses there that are not serviced by that water line either on the north side of the road.
I counted 4 property addresses: 15504, 15460, 15442, and 15426.
4 on the north side of the road.
Those are on the north side of the road. The ones on the south side are on city water. That's the information I was given.
There's only one there.
That farm property there, yes. And so, yeah, the recourse to them would be.
The question is the well's on 163rd Street, Chris.
Yeah, you have many wells in town that are much closer to private wells than that particular situation. I did check those wells. Well 6 over at Arrowhead is much closer to private wells of the same construction and I've
It
heard
all
of.
shows up at 167th in our packet.
Right, but the residents are from 163rd Street that are here concerning this. Nobody from 167th Street is here registered to speak.
Robert, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say his names, but 15504 West 167th Street was one of the residents. It was, my understanding was at the last meeting. That is the one with.
Either way, that whole area, the concern is what's going to happen to the water table. Is it going to drop and the residents are going to have to drill their wells deeper, abandon the wells, tie in the city water, and at whose expense then? That's the question.
You know, I wouldn't see, so the ones on 167th Street, I would say that one option there is for the city to extend the water line past those houses, hook those up. The ones on 163rd Street, if the well is placed at this location that we're talking about, which is basically just north of Prime Boulevard on 167th Street, I wouldn't see an effect of the water table that far. If we're affecting the water table that far, then we've got a glorious water producer, and I wouldn't see that. There's no signs of that anywhere else. Wells at well 13 at Gauger or at Cedar, and 167th has private wells much closer than that. There's a farm just south on Cedar that has a 209-foot deep well that is similar in construction to what we're talking about, not affected by well 13 that's out there.
So, did you say we're not going to de-water the aquifer? We're not depleting the amount in there. Even if we had a drill well there in the city, there's still going to be ample water for the residents.
Correct. We've been pumping from this aquifer for many, many years, and the water table is remaining the same. It's rapidly recharged. You get what's called a cone. When you're pumping, you do get a slight cone of depression around the well. You get a slight pull down of the water, very close in proximity to the well. That cone might affect 15504. That would be about the extent of what one would expect. So correct, we are not dewatering. We're not pumping that much water out of the aquifer. We've got records that date way back that show stable water levels with the same withdrawals out of all your other 6 wells in town.
In this aquifer, do you know where it starts and begins? Do you have an idea? It's probably not just in the city limits. Right?
Oh no, yeah, it's very far-reaching. This is the same shallow bedrock aquifer that Crest Hill, Romeoville, it's on the other side of the river, but this extends way out into past Homer Glen. It extends very far out.
So the cone of depression influence distance is one property. That's what you're saying? It only stretches for one property, and that's it. All the rest of them, forget it. That's what I'm getting at. What's the influence distance of the new well? How far-reaching can the impacts be? And whether it's a developed lot with a well or an undeveloped lot, are they affected by this at all? That's all.
Yeah.
That's all I'm trying to get at. I'm trying to protect the people.
Yeah, and it's
paying taxes on.
Without drilling the well, pumping the well, and drilling other wells, and seeing how far the cone of depression extends, nobody can answer that question.
Speculating, yes.
Yeah, it's all speculation. History shows in this area, and experience shows in this area, that it might affect 15504, that cone of depression. But I would be concerned with cloudiness, agitation, maintenance during the construction and maintenance operations, potentially affecting 15504, 15460, 15442, and 15426. Those are the properties, the 4 properties just to the east of this site. But one thing that I have to say is this is the only area left for the city of Lockport to get water out of the shallow aquifer. So whether it's this development or...
We want to do it, we just want to protect people. That's
understood, and I do too. And I think I think that usually the resolution to this problem or potential problem is to work with those residents to come up with a plan that connects them to the water
So
system.
with this development, then you're suggesting that the best option is put a water line down 163rd, hook all the houses up to
Seventh.
the water. Well, and 163rd too is the concern here. 167th, we have a water line. And there's 4 houses. What happens to the other houses on 163rd that this affects, if it affects them?
I think it would affect them. It's
It's too far away.
This development will have a water line.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And the other thing too, I just want to point out is that, the city is just seeking locations for these wells, as Chris pointed out. And this development is willing to give us one of those sites. We have not planned for the well. We have not even looked at any detailed drawings for the well. The city council hasn't even determined, where the well location is going to go. It's just based on the recommendations that Strand has done, is that this particular area and certain parts of this particular area are good for a well situation. So I guess what will ultimately have to happen, again, whether this project gives us the well site or another project gives us a well site, it'll be another topic for discussion at a later date once the city decides to move forward with the construction of a new well on how it will impact residents and neighbors in the area. At this point in time, it's a little difficult to determine that because we don't really know for sure, is it going to go here, assuming that this project goes through the process. If this project doesn't go through the process, there will be other locations that will have to be evaluated for this well.
Well, yeah, we just wanted to know the pros and cons since we're looking at the whole plan. You know what I'm saying? And that's what we're looking for. This is the concept level.
Let's put the monkey on
that's all it
somebody's
is.
back here. So you're a Joe Blow homeowner that lives on 167th Street, and all of a sudden your well goes dry because they drill a well down the street. Are you prepared to spend $10,000 or $15,000 or whatever amount to hook up water? We're just trying to counteract, have a plan in effect before this happens. So if it happens, because we're rolling dice at either end here, nobody has a definitive answer, that we have a plan in effect.
Right.
And we've protected our residents to the best we can. That's our plan.
I'm not here on behalf of this developer. I'm here on behalf of the city of Lockport.
Yeah, you're here for the city.
And one thing that I will say to that is if we get a well that is able to be constructed along this seam, it can be constructed we can shut a well off and figure out a solution to a problem. And nobody wants to spend millions of dollars on infrastructure and then have it sit there until we run more water lines. But if the well has adverse effects on 163rd Street, after you're done telling me I told you so, then we can shut the well down and deal with the problem, whether it's connecting onto the water line that's run up there from this development or another water line, and connect them up and work out. I understand there's financial stuff, and that's beyond. I'm just an engineer. But that's what I want to say is we can always shut the well off wherever it's at along this stretch, resolve any issues that might come about before we resume pumping again.
Okay.
Chris, can I just ask you 2 quick questions? How big a well is this going to be?
The well diameter would probably be 16 to 18 inches in diameter.
And what would you
maybe
guys
24.
hope that well would produce if you had to say gallons per minute? What would you hope?
I would hope for 10,000 gallons per minute, but likely it will produce somewhere between 500 and 800 gallons per minute, which is what your current wells are producing, between 500 and 800 gallons per minute.
I'd like to thank you for coming in tonight because we really didn't know, have too many facts on it, so thank you for coming in.
Well, we have the facts and options.
Providing data and knowledge to us for the
Love talking water, so anytime.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Does this work or no? Yeah, everyone on the, you guys can see the monitors, right? When they put their, well, I know, but
No, it's
click
an
on
honor.
your, click
We
on
can
your.
see it.
Are you seeing the PowerPoint come up?
We're seeing what you're doing.
Okay.
It's running.
It's running.
So they're good, so that's why you
Okay, how do we enlarge it, grab this thing? There we go. Put it on.
slideshow. Slideshow. Yeah, there you go.
It's right here.
It's kind of small. All right. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Darcy Fankhauser, representing Ridge Development for the Ridge 355 Commerce Park. A little bit of, excuse me? My personal address or work address? 200 West Madison, Chicago, Illinois. A little bit of background on Ridge Development. We're a national industrial development company led by Jim Martell, headquartered here in Chicago. We've been open for roughly 20 years, and in those 20 years, we've developed approximately 138 million square feet across the country, both on a build-to-suit and speculative basis. We have history working with a number of tenants such as Haynes, L'Oreal, Michelin, FedEx, Post, Johnson & Johnson, to name a few. Our largest footprint here in Chicago is in Wilmington, where we have a intermodal park in partnership with the BN. We currently have 4 million square feet with another 1.5 million square feet under development for a build-to-suit with General Mills. That's slated for completion, I think, at the end of November of this year. So we're currently under contract for approximately 109 acres, sometimes referred to as the Kohler Farm. As Pam mentioned earlier, the site was previously under contract by Hillwood Development, who also received their concept plan approval for a very similar plan back in August of 2015, both from this committee and the Committee of the Whole. Their concept plan obviously was only approved for 12 months, which expired August of 2016. Our proposed concept plan is a natural extension of the 355 Corporate Park to the west. We'll be utilizing the same truck routes and access points via John Lane Crossing and 163rd Street. Our development will have a focus on high-image office storefronts, extensive landscaping, vegetative buffers throughout, as well as over a 575-foot transition from the eastern side of the building to the eastern property line, which is basically just under 2 football fields in length, so a pretty significant buffer between our projects and the residential zoned areas to the east. So on a very macro level, the current industrial development cycle has encountered similar consolidation trends seen in other product types such as office, with their right sizing that's been very popular over the last 5 years or so. Whereas office users have predominantly been shrinking the size of offices and reducing their overall footprint, industrial has seen smaller tenants, typically those less than 300,000 square feet, consolidate their separate office and warehouse operations into one. So basically, in order for us to accommodate the shift in the trends for these sorts of tenants, we as developers have been placing a significant emphasis on high-image building design and amenities, which can be seen in the current slide. So the I-355 master plan as of 2014 reflects the site is zoned for office/business park. We do recognize that our concept plan is a variance from this approved use, but as was the case 2 years ago, the market is not supportive of this type of development in this location. In the approval of Hillwood's concept plan in 2015, they appropriately advised this council on the lack of demand for suburban office. As you can see from the chart on the left, suburban office vacancy was 20% in 2015, and it has increased since then to 22% this year. This shift is not unique to Chicago, but is also taking place all across the country in every major market. This trend is expected to continue into the foreseeable future with continued migration of companies to downtown locations and the consolidation of smaller tenants into higher image industrial product. So this slide shows the Hillwood site plan that was approved in 2015, which is, of course, very similar to our concept plan in that we lay out 4 buildings, all roughly 370,000 square feet, with interior loading docks and trailer parking so that they are not easily visible from the road. So we've worked diligently with community development and Pam and her team to improve upon the previously approved plan over the past 12 months. The differences between the two plans are revised access points, the consolidation of truck traffic to John Lane's Crossing, land dedication for the city tower and the city well, and the removal of the connection between 163rd and 167th on the eastern side of the property. So we think that the collaboration between ourselves and Pam and her team has yielded a plan that provides significant benefit to the city of Lockport. We have agreed to dedicate approximately 8 acres of land for the city's future use at no cost, with the city of Lockport ultimately being the title holder for these identified parcels. So in the Planning and Zoning Committee meeting last month, there was discussion regarding the Will County Freight Mobility Plan. So since then, we met with John Grueling to discuss this plan. He's leading this project, and we were able to get some valuable insight into what his expectations are and what the expected uses for this report are. So the basis of the study is to recognize the region's competitive advantage in global freight movement, understand the current state of freight movement in the region, and help provide policy advice to guide the future state of freight movement. From our conversation, my impression was that this report is intended to be used at a macro level to help quantify and qualify the impact of freight movement within Will County. A few stats that I found particularly interesting, and I believe were commented on in the last meeting, is that 52% of all private sector jobs in Will County are related to transportation, distribution, and logistics. And also 62% of the freight traffic in Will County is through traffic, which is not originating here in Will County. So the draft report, per John Grueling, is currently in process and is likely to be available within the next 30 to 60 days. We are confident that our plan will be reviewed favorably with respect to the clearly defined truck access and utilization of the designed truck routes. So obviously we understand that industrial development has been facing adversity here in Lockport, with one of your biggest concerns being truck traffic. Our plan makes use of dedicated truck routes that limit truck traffic in the more populated residential areas. The truck circulation in our concept plan funnels traffic through John Lane's Crossing to 163rd Street, which then connects to Gauger Road and I-355, which altogether is less than 1 mile. So our development plan contemplates roughly $100 million of investment into this site. Based on conservative tax assumptions, the project, when complete, should produce just under $2 million in tax revenue, with some adjustment for inflation, and then with the 1.5 roughly million square feet developed, the job creation could be roughly 375 jobs in this location. That is based on an industry standard of 1 job per 4,000 square feet, and that's for light industrial. So again, we'd just like to reiterate our willingness to work with Lockport, both on a public and private initiatives. I want to thank Pam and her team for all their help over the last year. We're very committed to this project, and we hope that the merits of the development garner support from Lockport.
We have 4 people that signed up from the public to speak. Bob Thompson, speak.
My name is Bob Thompson. I live at 15612 163rd Street, Lockport, Illinois, directly across the street from the proposed warehouse. Before I get started, I'd like to hand out this little copy from the Herald News. Thank you. Like I said, that is a copy from the Herald News about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I have, I guess, only 2 concerns. The first one is from the proposed diagram that the warehouse development put out last meeting we were here. It showed that the entrance to the warehouse development was going to be about directly across the street from our residence. And it was mentioned by one of the other residents, Guy, last week, that they use the John Lane crossing and keep the truck traffic inside their own property. And that's what that handout refers to that I gave you. It's just to show that other business parks have thought about it and have tried to do that. And that's all I'm asking the Planning Commission to consider, is that maybe this would be possible to alleviate having that entrance right across the street from our residents. There's actually only 3 residents there that are directly affected, and they've been there for a while. One of the homes has been there for over 100 years, the other over 65 years, and the other over 25 years. And I've lived in each of them at one time or another. It's not like we're newcomers. We're not coming after the warehouses and infringing on their driveways and right-of-ways. It's actually the other way around. So I'm just asking that you consider that. Maybe there is a way to alleviate that and keep us from having to face that truck traffic every day. Now, I didn't hear too much. My hearing is bad about what the well man said, but that was my other concern, was the well that the city of Lockport is proposing. I know they said last month at the meeting that we didn't have to worry about that because these are deep wells. Well, back in the 1970s, when Lockport put their well in on Farrell Road by Division Street, it was in the 500-foot range. And every resident on 163rd Street, they called it 7th Street then, had to either drill their wells deeper or drill a new well. It lowered the water table that much. Now, I can speak exactly from Gauger Road to Cedar Road. Now, on the west side of Gauger Road, I only, excuse me, I only know of 2 or 3 families that had to do it. But everybody between Cedar and Gauger at that time had to do it. Most of us only had 4-inch casings then, and we couldn't drill a new well because the bores are bigger than that. So we all had, we couldn't drill deeper, so we all had to drill new wells. But it is something that has happened, And maybe, I didn't understand everything the gentleman said, maybe they've taken that in consideration, but it looks like if this development goes through, we'll not only have the luxury of living across from warehouses and having trucks 24 hours a day, we'll also have to spend between $10,000 and $20,000 drilling a new well. And as far as tapping onto the city water, there's no water lines by us. They don't exist. So it's kind of impossible to tap onto the city water unless they do install water lines. So those are my two concerns, and I thank you for letting me speak to you today.
Next, we have Kevin Zach.
We can share. Thank you.
I've been here for 21 years, right this summer, so it feels a shame to me that you want to change things to get us off the property. So, anyway, I've got all this stuff. I've had our house made here. It was actually made in 1937. So, here it is. But otherwise, that thing I couldn't say, I have nothing that I couldn't say anything here. So, let me go. Take care.
Thank you. Next, we have Bruce Kozlowski.
Good evening. I'm Bruce Kozlowski. I live at 15433 West 163rd Street. A lot of my concerns are the same with Mr. Thompson there. But listening today, from what I heard about the well, the deep well, and the maybes, and we shouldn't probably have a problem, I think it's a pretty poorly engineered project. And I see no reason why they can't come up with more complete plans and detailed plans and construction plans on that for the city of Lockport and the neighboring villages here. There are a lot more wells in the area than the gentleman said there were. To say they'll shut off the well if there's a problem, well, you know, after the damage is done, you want to shut off the well and come up with a new plan then. It doesn't seem very well thought out. Makes me feel that the rest of the plan probably wasn't that well thought out. And I only ask that you really consider this carefully. It's a beautiful place to live. Always has been, and the city of Lockport has always done a lot of good things, and I would hope that they would not take this lightly. Just please consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have guys. I don't know if what's that? It's okay.
I think Mr. Thompson said it perfectly. I just wanted to reiterate the importance of how strongly we feel about the well and the entrances across the street from our homes. We're all good neighbors and we have no problem with development. Things have to move, things have to grow. We would just expect and hope that you hold Ridge Development to a high standard and working with the village, especially over this water situation. That's about all I got for now. Thank you.
You Want to address some of these concerns? Two big concerns, the entranceway.
The entranceway. So we only have one access point that we would be installing on 163rd, which is closer to the eastern side of the property. John Lane's Crossing obviously is already there, and we would be doing some improvements to 163rd, and also we've talked to Pam about working out some sort of way to help with some improvements in front of Panettone's site as well, or 355 Corporate Park. So at this point, I think that utilizing John Lane Crossing for the truck traffic, the other access point is predominantly for auto traffic, just regular vehicles. I don't even think that it's going to be available for trucks. I don't understand why they would go further past their destination to turn in. In terms of the city well, that is something that was asked of us to provide, and we were amenable to it. If you guys have a different location for the city well, we'd be fine just keeping the land ourselves. So again, we were just going to try to be amenable to what you guys are looking for and what you guys need. We know that you have very limited resources in terms of where you can place it, given the situation. But we are open to working with you guys in any way that we can.
So that I heard correctly and everyone else, your truck access point will be
John Lane Crossing, correct.
east entrance is for
Cars, yes, correct.
Okay, what do we got? Comment?
This seems to be presented as a package deal, in essence saying you can't have the business park without the wells, and you can't have the wells without the business park. I don't see how one directly affects the other. But I concur with the concerns raised by the residents about the wells. There should be enough water, but, and the other thing is that the 355 corridor master plan, the city spent a lot of time and money, a lot of my time developing it. We revised it just 3 years ago. The applicant mentions that right now the demand for warehouses is up and the demand for office parks is down. Well, we knew that 3 years ago. That's really not news. But this is sub-area 21 that clearly states should be developed for an office park, warehouse distribution uses, and other uses generating significant truck traffic should be discouraged. I just can't ignore that. And if this were to go ahead, the property to the east, section 22, said this area should be developed for residential uses, primary or single-family residences. If we put this up on property 21, property 22 really becomes worthless for other than agricultural uses. Nobody's going to put anything there if this goes in. So I just can't ignore what the corridor master plan says, and I really can't support this proposal.
Question to this. Whose jurisdiction over Gallagher from 100, heading north to 159th Street? That's the township. Is that roadway built? I know that it's being used today, but is it built to 100,000 pounds, or is it? What's that, 100,000 pounds? 83, whatever. So in 2015, when it was approved originally, I imagine things are different in Lockport today. How many more developments, truck terminals have been built, have been approved for construction or under construction? I'm sure there's probably several million square feet more today than there were 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I could be completely wrong, but it seems that's what I see anyway. You made a mention the CED report is a macro, and it's good that John Gruely and his CED is looking at it. I've said this many times, Will County is a transportation hub. It's growing. But the impacts are at the micro level of Lockport. We're seeing that every day. In my opinion, I think you missed your boat. Not you, but I think the boat was missed in 2015 when it lapsed. And I just, for that reason, for the trucking impacts that we're seeing today in Lockport, till we get that under control, and with the comprehensive plan, I'm leaning with Bill and not supporting this.
Interesting. You have no comments? I always have comments. Jim had mentioned the infrastructure. Is there a preliminary agreement that addresses the pavement on 163rd being reconstructed? I know Panattoni said they're rebuilding Gallagher, but are they going all the way to the ramps on 355? Are they reassessing the signal at 159th and Gallagher? Are they reassessing the need for a traffic signal at Gallagher and 163rd?
That's been discussed many times, that traffic signal at 163rd.
So,
and as the traffic study shows, right now it's not needed, but as this stuff continues, it will be readdressed, and the adjoining owners that have put the warehouses in are on the hook for paying for it.
Is that
as they would? This is a concept plan. Part of the concept plan is, do you like it or not? The engineering and everything will be done next, and the road improvements and all that will be addressed in the annexation agreement.
Is there a preliminary annexation agreement though drafted?
No.
We're constant.
Yeah, the biggest thing that Bill and Jim brought up, and I brought this up last time too, is we paid a lot of money for this 355 corridor plan, and it's pointing in the other direction and saying it should be office. And that was addressed in the packet where I think you said there's a 21% vacancy rate in the office market.
Suburban
and
office.
A 7% vacancy rate, I think you said, in the truck, in the industrial market. Is that? Because I don't have my packet with me.
Correct.
It's passed out.
Yeah, suburban office vacancy rates today in 2017 are 22%. For light industrial office warehouse space, it's roughly it's just under 7%.
Okay, so when this 355 corridor plan was put together, those numbers were still the same, yet they still wanted office here. Is that correct? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Well, I wasn't here when that plan was put into effect, so I'm not sure what methodology that the consultant who prepared the plan for the city at that time used. As a former consultant, I can tell you that when we would do comprehensive plan updates, we wouldn't necessarily look at percentages of market conditions per se, because at that time, the market until the economy crashed was pretty much, you could determine how land use was being developed, what would make sense where. Once the economy kind of tanked, those thought processes kind of went out the window, because now nothing was happening. And if you recall, when the city did do that plan, we purposely wrote in some flex spaces in certain areas of the city. Now, this obviously was not one of those areas for a flex, type of land use designation. But again, I don't know, intimately what the methodology was at the time that proposal for the update came before you.
Yeah, what I'm getting at is there wasn't, in 2014 when they drafted this report for 355, there wasn't a dip in the data that they show in their packet. If there was a dip, in other words, when the office was approved in that year, it was still at 20%. 3 or 4 years ago, and it's the same today as it was 3 or 4 years ago, so that tells me that we should not be reassessing that area for the comprehensive plan, because that, I think, was brought up also last month. We were talking about it. So I'm bending toward Jim and Bill on this too. That's all I got.
Hi, my name is Adam Marshall. I'm with Newmark at 8750 West Bryn Mawr in Chicago. I'm the commercial real estate broker working with Ridge, and I was here 2 years ago with Hillwood when you guys passed the concept plan. And, pardon? That's correct. But in talking about the numbers, one of the reasons for, looking at industrial development was because of the high office vacancy rate, which has increased since then. And that the big driver for demand in Chicago, in the corridor here, and across the country is that, industrial, warehouse, and office has been performing strong and even stronger today than it was 2 years ago, which was one of Hillwood's basis for getting this approved for industrial development at that time.
And something else that I think they brought up too is there's properties to the north and east that really may never be developed as residential if this goes in. That's the bigger thing that I'm looking at too is on the zoning map. I'm looking around the footprint of this site, and it's all residential. If it ever wants to be developed, it can't be developed. I think there's a memo in our packet from one of the residences that owns that property, and he had mentioned that.
Yeah, but read
Anyways, we did the 355 plan for a reason. We didn't waste the money and just push it off to the side. As commissioners, we have to look at all the different data sets that we have, and that's one of them. So that's all I got.
I'm not an expert in industrial warehouses, distribution warehouses, but could you explain to me a little bit about the impact of truck traffic, the number of trucks coming in and out, the likelihood of them coming in and out at all hours of the day or night when you have bays on one side of the warehouse versus bays on both sides of the warehouse, but I understand that sort of through.
Right. So these have not been designed as cross docks, which is where you have loading docks on both sides of the building. So these all have loading docks on just a single side, and all of those are interior facing loading docks. So you won't have to deal with the noise and the beeping and the lights and stuff if we do find a tenant that has after-hour operations. Given the fact that we are planning this as a speculative development, I really can't say too much in terms of what the expectation is for truck traffic. I know that there will be some, but I cannot say for sure how high or how low that count will be. But given the way that we've designed it, we've tried to protect the residents as much as possible for noise issues, stuff like that, so that, they're not going to be able to see people loading the trucks or the trucks leaving the building, that type of thing, because it's all going to be interior facing. So their view from 163rd on the north side, it'll be all building. There will be no loading docks on that side. So it'll be building and parking area.
So this development is going to be obviously similar to the one next to it, and also similar to the development east of 355 south of 143rd.
Yes, it'll be very similar to the 355 development that Panattoni completed.
Okay, and if the entrance on the east side is limited to cars,
Auto traffic, yep.